As a reminder, I gotta check, this meeting is being recorded. We're good to go, we're set, okay. And order events tonight will be as follows. For each public hearing, staff will introduce the agenda item and present a summary of the staff report. The applicant will then be asked to explain the proposal further and to answer any questions from the planning commission members. I will then open the floor to public comment, first for the persons in support of the application, and then for persons in opposition of the application. When you step up to the podium, please state your name, address, and speak clearly into the microphone. Each speaker will have the chance to speak once and should keep their comments to less than 5 minutes. Speakers are encouraged to only address new and relevant information pertaining to the item. Above all, please be cordial to the meeting participants and refrain from side conversations. Speaking now in turn, or I will ask you to leave. Lastly, decisions on rezoning applications will be scheduled for additional public hearings during upcoming County Board of Commissioners. Decisions on conditional use permits applications may be appealed to the County Board of Commissioners by supporting a letter to the County Planning and Zoning Office within 5 days. So with that, I will do roll call. It's always easier for me to just read right off the list here. Commissioner Hogan,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensted,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins,
Here.
and Commissioner Jungley is also here. All right, approval of the meeting minutes. I assume all the commissioners had the chance to review the last meeting minutes. Are there any changes or corrections made? All right, seeing none, I'll ask for, do roll call for approval. Commissioner Hogan,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensted,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
and Commissioner Jungley is also a yes. All right, approval of tonight's meeting agenda. Mr. Brown, is there any changes?
No changes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. With that, I'll, ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for this evening.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. I'll do roll call. Commissioner Hogan,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensted,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
and Commissioner Jungley is also a yes. All right, at this time is public input. So at this time, we'll ask for public input on any comments that are not on the agenda tonight. If you have anything that you want to discuss about the county or issues we have that are not on the agenda tonight, please feel free and have your name and number. All right, any public input?
Betty Otten, 46787 273rd Street, NT. I thought other people would be up here before I was, but I guess with the agenda that's on tonight for all of the townships being notified that they have to be, by law, they have to meet in their townships for the assessments. We are going to ask that you table tonight's agenda until the townships are able to be here. And so you should actually table all the discussions because the townships are not here for any of it. And I do ask the question about why aren't both townships notified of these building eligibility transfers? Because it obviously affects their roads. I'm told that neither Perry nor LaValley Townships were notified about agenda number 3. And then after last month's planning and zoning meeting, I want to bring to your attention South Dakota codified laws regarding conflicts of interest, that any planning and zoning commissioner or commissioners who have any interest in the agenda items certainly need to sit down and have no comment or vote in that discussion. I have handout transcripts from that meeting where the P and Z at large commissioner gave a stunning, almost 7-minute uninterrupted speech on behalf of Primo Feedlot. His speech certainly fits into the narrative of actual bias and unacceptable risk of actual bias, predisposition of the outcome, and did not consider the matter in complete fairness. His vote should be invalidated. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have public comment?
David Gillespie, 1125 East Elder Street, Canton, South Dakota. Mine's pretty short here. A lot of these confinement sales are jacking up the price of land down here in southern Lincoln County, which is making it harder and harder for the sons and daughters of regular farming operations to return home because Lincoln County isn't following their own guidelines from 2005 to 2025 comprehensive plan. Starting that, Lincoln County is to promote development patterns which will avoid producing inflated ag land prices. Lincoln County should be aware of this happening and help prevent this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment for tonight? All right, seeing none, I'll close the floor and we'll move on to old business. Mr. Brown, any old business for tonight?
None, Mr. Chairman.
All right, number one, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Toby Brown, representing County Planning. This first item, the applicant for this item is John Schwartzley. The property owner is Lori Long. Location of this property is approximately a little over 3 miles to the northeast of the city of Harrisburg. Purpose for this application, the applicant is requesting to rezone the approximately 43-acre parcel from the A1 Agricultural District to the RR Rural Residential District to facilitate a subdivision of 29 lots for a rural residential single-family development. The future land use map in the comprehensive plan identifies this property as agricultural area. The comprehensive plan goals and policies also state that in an agricultural area, density of single-family dwellings should be restricted to the 1 per quarter. And so staff finding for this application is that the application is not consistent with the comprehensive plan. This would be the exhibit of the zoning that would be requested. With that, we'd have to answer any questions that you have for staff at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Commissioners, any question for staff tonight?
Okay, thank
See you
you.
now.
The applicant is in attendance.
Thank you. All right, at this time, I will ask the applicant or their representative to come forward and talk about the application.
Hello, everybody. My name is Gib, G-I-B Ganshow, and this is Brad, our engineer.
My name is Brad Letcher. I'm with JSA Engineers in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
I live at 2635 Park Place, T, South Dakota.
1601 South Silver Creek Circle in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
I don't know if this last 6 months has been, it's been very difficult for us to wait to get back in front of you guys. Or my daughter having twin boys. I don't know what's been more difficult in that 6 months, but in July, we went through the planning and zoning and we were approved for the preliminary plan. And what we did is we were refused at the commission meeting. So we had an opportunity to cross our Ts. Where's the camera at? I'm sorry. What's that? Okay. We had a 6-month opportunity to cross our Ts and dot our Is. And Toby and his crew have just been phenomenal in terms of helping us with the information that was of concern of yours and the commissioners.
Yes, please.
About where that mouse was, put the piece of paper, it's directly below.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so, and then she'll switch it over to.
Okay,
There, now you can see it on the screen.
okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So,
Gib, you might want to move that over into.
She'll,
oh boy,
yep, she'll take care of it. You're good.
okay. We know that there's been a concern of drainage. That's been the big concern. And Brad here is the brains behind JSA that handles all the drainage studies for JSA. And you can see this particular picture right here is the way that the land is today and has been for eons. And so what we're gonna do, do you have that other picture? What we're gonna do, because we have hired the right engineers and whatnot, we're gonna reduce the, I guess, call it opportunity for the rain, the drainage to be channeled to the 2 retention ponds that we're gonna dig. Even so, if you see here, if this pond gets too full or whatever, it's not gonna go east, it's gonna go west to the back of the property. And that was one of the concerns. So that's just an overview of really what we're doing. Toby, thank you, by the way, hooked us up with your drainage consultants at Winsk and Stantec. They had some concerns that we appreciated, and so we went through all of their concerns with our engineers, and we answered them on this particular, well, this one, they're answered on here, and then we answered them internally. We believe, we do more than believe, we know that the drainage issue is not gonna be a concern. We've spent a tremendous amount of money. We've walked the property. We've met with the homeowners that are affected, and I believe that they're feeling a lot more comfortable in terms of where this water is gonna go. There's not gonna be a drainage issue. There's not gonna be an addition to the water that comes from the sky that's gonna go east. It's not gonna happen. We're spending a tremendous amount of money with grading, making sure that everything's right, and we're confident that that's not gonna happen. One of the other concerns, kind of in chronological order, was the ingress and egress to the project. We met with Terry, I call him the road guy, but he's in charge of the roads. And he met Dave and I out there. Dave Long, his mom owns the property. And he approved us to have the 2 entrances into the property. We have to close down one of them that goes into the east that's not being used by the current project. And then Dave has one that goes into the driving range that he's agreed to eliminate, which allowed us to pass and for him to approve us. So that was another thing that was kind of a stumbling point, was we felt that the project needed 2 entrances, and just in order for convenience, I suppose. And so that's in a nutshell what's been going on for the last 6 months. We've not been sitting around. We've been spending a lot of time meeting with Terry, meeting with the engineers. We met with Toby right off the bat. We spent a lot of time with Brad in terms of the drainage. That was a concern. And I'm certain that we won't have an issue with drainage. And I get it. That area could be a problem, but we've spent a huge amount of money digging those retaining pits. Those are 19 to 25 feet deep. And we hired Geotech to drill in 5 spots down 20 feet, just so we knew where the water table was. And out of the 5 holes that we drilled, we never hit water. So I believe there again, there's not going to be, our retention pits are going to be filled with water because there's not water there. And listen, I get it. There's some aquifers there, and I understand that. But where we drilled 5 holes. There wasn't a problem with groundwater. So again, I remain confident that the development that we're doing is not, it's not a standalone development. There's been approvals of developments in that area that aren't even hooked to an existing project. This project, our project, is attached to the same project, 1 acre rural properties. We're not gonna have propane tanks. We've already talked to the gas company. They're gonna come in and take care of all that. The water guys, they're on board. And, it's just gonna be a beautiful project, and we're excited about it. I think it's a great addition to the area, and we're looking for approval, and we appreciate you guys and what we're trying to accomplish for people in the Harrisburg area that need a great place to live with 1 acre lots. So let me just check my notes here. I think the one thing that we accomplished during the last 6 months is knowing that we have a great project. There's been some concerns of drainage. That's been addressed. We've met with Colin. He's on the board of the project to the east. And you know, it's just something that is awesome for the area, and I think that it's deserved, and we're excited about it. Do you want to say anything, Brad? You have any questions?
I'm here for questions.
All right, thank you, guys. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions for the owners or representatives?
I have one. When you said the water guys are all on board, are you wells? What are you
No,
gonna do?
we're gonna have city water that comes off of 106. There's a 6-inch main that runs down the ditch in 106. So we'll tie into that and then wrap it around. And then rural water.
I was gonna say, the city's not out there.
Rural, I'm
Okay.
sorry, Lincoln County rural water, I apologize. I've met with Robin, he's the manager. We've got all that underway, not underway, but we're ready to go. We've got all the information that we need, and we're excited about that part of it too. There's not gonna be any wells.
Okay.
Do you guys have any plans of hooking up to the development to the east?
Well, that's really not our decision.
I mean by roads. I mean.
There's, we've talked about that. We have roads, we have shaded roads going south, and then we have, in our plan, then we have shaded roads that go to the west. So we know where we would cut them through if we do that. But the road that's there now on Meadowlark, that's really not our decision. I think it's gonna be Terry's decision. We've had some concern from the homeowners that live to the east. They don't want that, they don't want it to connect, just because of traffic. We're gonna have 29 lots, 27 lots. There's not gonna be a whole bunch of traffic, especially when we have 2 entrances to 106. But, I think from an emergency standpoint, 911, I don't know, you guys, the Lincoln County needs to decide if we can adjoin the property to the east, which is Meadowlark. We honestly don't have, that's not our concern. I mean, we don't have any say over that. The existing road, Meadowlark, does go into our property. But it stops, and there's a big berm of dirt right there. So I would assume that back in the day when Lauren Long built those projects, he was gonna build the next 40 and the next 40, the next 80, and he would continue the road through. But right now, it just sits vacant in front of Colin's house, actually. So yeah, I'm sure he has some concern, and he'll talk about that here in a minute, but we really don't, what we will do is we will barricade it during construction, and I'm not talking about cones, I'm talking about structure that won't allow, the dump trucks and whatnot to go through their neighborhood. It's not gonna happen, and we assured them of that. So the concern of construction traffic is not there. But you guys, or the county, Lincoln County, needs to decide if, from an emergency standpoint, do you want the roads to go through? That's not our call. But we're willing to spend the money to extend our roads through there if it's necessary.
All right, commissioners, additional questions for the applicant? Seeing none, I had a few. So is this under Harrisburg Volunteer Fire Department for emergency services?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Any additional questions? Looks like we're good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, at this time, I will ask anybody in favor of the application to come forward. All right, seeing none, we will ask anybody in opposition of the application to come forward.
Colin Adama, 47975 Meadowlark Street, Harrisburg. I'll try to keep this brief, but have a number of comments for the commissioners. First, I'd like to mention we've had good and healthy conversation with John, Gibb, Dave, as well as Toby and Commissioner Aaron's, as well as a lot of homeowners and residents in the area. So I believe we may have varying perspectives, but discussion is a great way to gain common ground, and I stand here wanting to continue that as this leads up to the commissioner's official vote next month as well. So regardless of how this vote turns out, I would look forward to that. Toby also made the comment in one of ours that having a roundtable discussion is the way to do it, and I would agree there 100%. So I would not want this to be a back and forth discussion. That method is much better than me looking at you guys. So second, related to that, I'd acknowledge this forum is very difficult. It's simply a black and white vote on a topic and a process that is very much the opposite of black and white. We're standing here looking at a vote on a rezone, yet the topics presented here at face value really have nothing to do with a rezone, right? Yet this is how the process works. With the rezone and the preliminary plans tied together, each subsequent domino falls. So I'm bringing my concerns here. I won't repeat them after the second vote, but this is the form for which this is called. And then thirdly, I'm standing here wearing a lot of hats. I'm a homeowner in the neighborhood. I'm a member, or a voted member of an HOA board. I'm a friend and colleague of all the surrounding HOAs, and a neighbor of the future homeowners who may live next to me. And I'd say from all that, we have a lot of work to do here. We've heard this last summer, and we've made some headway, but I'm standing on this side of the black and white, just saying we have some more work to do before we get to the commissioners. So I'd like to have that to continue. I'd also like to see the comprehensive plan adjusted. Toby mentioned it was up for potential revision. Yes, please, anything to make that easier and better would be awesome. Water in the area is a problem. It's not to be taken lightly no matter what. It's on everyone's minds. It's on the minds of the future homeowners and on us. And I think we can work something out to benefit the upstream and downstream neighbors. Traffic density and roads are a problem also. Gib mentioned that too. Each HOA in the surrounding neighborhood has built, maintained, and owned their roads. The precedent is very large that none of them are connected, and we do that because we all have skin in the game. We are in the middle of a 10-year note, as is all of our neighbors. So I'd ask the Planning and Zoning Commission to think about that and maintain these private, self-maintained roads and not allow them to be conjoined, as that's not a solution to the ever-growing traffic problem on 271 and 135. On the statement of emergency and 911 concerns, that is huge. I'd love to get to the bottom of it, so I'd ask on that topic, let's have a conversation. I'm up for any discussion, whoever we need to talk to, let's do this. So David, Gib, John, you've been of like mind, really appreciated. Let's work something out before next month. And then lastly, I'll end with saying, this area is a great place to live. And the existing neighborhoods in the last 20 years have worked to evolve and maintain the areas. We can learn from the past. None of the current buildings are perfect, and we've learned a lot in the last 20 years. The engineering that's gone into it is vastly improved. I believe that. And I also believe the Planning and Zoning Committee, the Board of Commissioners, and the land developers will work with us to protect the future residents and us as we go through this. So thank you for your time. These are my concerns. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Colin. All right, anybody else in opposition of the application? All right, seeing none, I'll close the floor to public input, and I'll ask a motion from the commission so we can discuss.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve just for discussion.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second for approval. All right, commissioners, any discussion?
I guess I would like to see more work with the surrounding homeowners to maybe come to a better agreement. I don't want anybody to go in together and have bad feelings. If you guys can work together a little more. I honestly understand that since they are all separate, maintain your own roads, I think that would probably be best if we can get, you got the two entrances for emergencies, so. I mean, I definitely applaud you for doing all this work with drainage, that's great. Obviously, there's still some concerns that may need to be hashed out here. That's just my concerns here.
Yeah, not to sound like a broken record, but I say the same thing every time we get one of these is, my concern exactly is that everybody wants to stay individual, and eventually you're gonna be part of a municipality. I mean, that's, in the future. We don't know when that is, but eventually you're gonna be. And so I think as a planning commission, if we continue to approve these individual developments, all that creates is just further headaches down the road for the municipality that you become part of, right? Just from the road standpoint, water and sewer, roads, so on and so forth. And so I struggle with them from that standpoint, and I really feel like these types of developments currently should be more concentrated outside of our municipalities as they're able to handle this type of thing. And they've got the services to do that. And, you know, just from a policing standpoint, this becomes an extra burden on our sheriff's department, which becomes an extra burden on our county budget, and so on and so forth. So that's what I struggle with these rural residential things, is I truly feel like right now these developments need to be put towards our municipalities, or at least our municipalities need to have some say in them, because eventually they're gonna become part of that.
All right, other commissioners, additional comments?
Mr. Chairman, just real quick, the one thing I don't like to see is the fact that Gibb has gone through and spent a lot of money and time pushing this, or, you know, putting time in along with our county staff time going into this plan. However, I know we've I guess we've sort of set a precedence of not doing these outside of municipalities, as we've discussed, just emergency services, things like that. I guess I would encourage Gibb to appeal if it fails to the county commission. And I hope that that would give our board some insight on their decision if they agree with us or go a different direction on how we should be approaching these, if we're taking it the right direction or not. And then if it does fail and the appeal is upheld, I really think the county needs to take a stronger look at, you know, a possible moratorium of these rural residentials, or just not having it in the book at all, because it's a shame that a private individual, county landowner would, you know, go through all the work of putting something like this together, and having a county plan for it, and then, you know, have two boards that just aren't gonna go along with it. So I think our rules need to be addressed as well.
All right, other commissioners? All right, I'll wrap up my final comments. I agree a lot with what Commissioner Johnson said. I've looked into it. I've almost done a few things like this, and you put your hundreds of hours into it, and I can't say enough about that. But the other hand, I just keep coming down to the fact that it's outside municipal, and for growth in Lincoln County, as we are growing, as we are expanding beyond faster than most of us can handle, it's just, I'm sure it'd be great. I really do. I struggle with opening another separate entity outside of a municipal with emergency services and everything involved. So that's my struggle also. And I do, again, want to reiterate, this is a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Board. This goes to the county commissioners for their final approval. So this is a recommendation. So there's always can be an approval or a, can't think of the word now, it just left me. But anyway, so we have a motion, second. All right, well, I'll do roll call. Commissioner Hogan.
We're doing on motion to approve, right?
Yeah, we're a motion to approve.
No.
Commissioner Johnson.
No.
Commissioner Ensted.
No.
Commissioner Green.
No.
Commissioner Scott.
No.
Commissioner Poppins.
No.
And Commissioner Jungling is also a no. All right, item number 2, Mr. Brown.
So this next application, this is accompanying the previous application. This would be the preliminary plan that's associated with it. And so the applicant mentioned a lot about it, but I'll go through kind of some basic things. Again, the applicant for this item is John Schwartzley. The property owner is Lori Long. I'll go to this part right here. And so, again, the purpose for this would be a subdivision of 29 lots. As the applicant stated, the access, primary access would be 2 points of access onto 271st Street or Highway 106. And then third point of access or ingress egress would be to the existing platted right-of-way for Meadowlark Street. Again, Meadowlark is a publicly dedicated right-of-way. As I mentioned to the homeowners when I met with them, is that there's a process that we've seen in other subdivisions where it could be vacated, which would essentially allow then non-connection. But as it's platted today, we would have to require a connection to that subdivision. Again, as mentioned, water is provided by Lincoln County Rural Water. And I'll mention for the record that they have no affiliation with the Lincoln County government. That's a private entity that provides rural water service. Sewer would be individual treatment, on-site wastewater treatments. And the drainage, as previously mentioned. And again, as the applicant mentioned, they did do a response to our responses, which I included in the staff report, went through that pretty thorough about the analysis of the submittal, but there was a new resubmittal from their engineer that I received today. I didn't have time to get through that today, but essentially, As was mentioned, they're proposing 2 detention ponds, one to be in the northwest corner of the property and one to be in the southeast corner of the property. So essentially, all drainage would be configured to go to those 2 ponds. The north pond would drain through the right-of-way, under the right-of-way, and under the road to the adjacent development to the north. The southeast pond would, and again, that's a point discharge. And so the pond to the southeast would do a point discharge into the right-of-way or the ditch of essentially Meadowlark Street and would go that direction. So there's, as the applicant mentioned, there's still some things that myself and our engineers and their engineers have to work through as far as development of that. But again, as I mentioned in the staff report and staff analysis, staff finding is that this application is not consistent with the comprehensive plan. And so with that, I'd be happy to answer your questions that you have for staff at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Any questions from staff, for the staff?
Okay, thank you.
All right, at this time, I'll ask the applicant to come forward and talk about their application for the subdivision plan.
Thank you again. As Toby mentioned, we went back to the drawing board with some of the concerns that the commission had when they refused our application. But I think the most important thing to understand is that our engineers are professionals and they know what they're doing. They do a lot of developments in Lincoln County, and we feel confident, especially when the consultants for Lincoln County had reviewed the plans and came back with probably 3 or 4 drainage issues. The other ones were more like, how high are the roads gonna be? How big are the lots gonna be? We need to show a mile radius. But again, if you look at this plan, it's not up there, but this is the way that it is today. And when Brad ran these models, how far back did they go?
As in,
This? Years?
well, I couldn't tell you how far back.
Yeah, they go back a long way, and this is where we felt when we first came through in July was the concern of drainage. And so we, of course, asked JSA to, give us the direction in terms of how to mitigate the drainage concern. Therefore, we're digging some big giant pits out there, which I think is necessary to retain the water. And then even so, the pit that's to the south, we've re-engineered the dirt so where if it ever does overflow, it's gonna go to the west versus to the east into Collins, into his property. We've gone through and we've, measured all the culverts. We've done everything that we possibly can do to eliminate the concern from the neighbors to the east. And I get it. I mean, I believe that the rain, when it does rain, it pools up in the neighbors' homes that are to the west on the east side of the project. But other than that, it just goes into the drain tile that they dug and paid for themselves a while ago. But I don't know what to say. I mean, it's a great project. We've got the retention pond that we're gonna build a walkway around with benches. And it's gonna be a great project for the community. And we have had little or no opposition from the neighbors as long as we explain to them the drainage concerns. And those have been addressed. So I don't know what else to say. I think it's a great project for the neighborhood. We would appreciate an approval of our preliminary plan because we think it's great and all the drainage issues have been addressed. in terms of the road, that's gonna be a decision on your behalf. But, John and I, my partner, we're excited to move forward. You have anything?
No, just from a engineering aspect of looking at the drainage, I mean, we knew that the existing drainage was an issue in this area from the start. So we were able to start our design on this development with that drainage in mind. So that's what we were able to take. And I don't know if you see it, or I do have more paper copies if you guys want something up close. We were able to divert that drainage to our ponds and substantially decrease the amount of water that was flowing to the east into the neighbors' lots. And those neighbors have had multiple issues that they themselves have told us about, and we have tried to address all those issues. So I think it's a great opportunity for the subdivision to the east, for those neighbors to get those drainage issues taken care of by us. So, and I know talking to him, we went and walked Collins Land with him, kind of walked around a little bit this weekend and kind of tried to explain to him how this was going to benefit him. And I think he understands that we're trying to help them. We're not just trying to move over next to them and take up the land that is their good views right now. We're trying to help them drainage wise too. So if you got any questions about drainage, I can go ahead and answer anything, but.
Thank you, Brad. Commissioners, any questions for the application? See you none. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, and this time I'd like to invite anybody up to speak in favor of the application.
I'm Owen Postma. I own the Waterway North.
Excuse me, could you, your name and address, please?
Owen Postma, 27097 Prairie Hills Trail. I own the waterway on the north side that he had mentioned, and he had mentioned that they had addressed where the water would go if it was in the south retention pond. Myself, seeing that the waterway cuts through my backyard and then runs into my neighbor's retention pond, I'm very curious to know where the water would go if the north retention pond were to rupture. And then all the neighbors in the north side actually kind of have a lot that curves down into a ravine that is all not wet because of the retention pond at, I don't even know the address, but I'm just I'm curious, I guess maybe from the north side's opinion. We thought this was dead like 6 months ago, so we didn't, get too involved because I was told that they needed to be curb and gutter and this wasn't gonna go too much farther, so me and a couple of the other neighbors are kind of surprised that this was the same letter that was sent out last year, came back again about 2 weeks ago. So I'm just curious to know what the fallback is for the retention pond in the northwest corner. If the diversion route is my waterway, is that gonna be prevented or is that gonna be flooded? I'm having massive heaving in my backyard right now anyway, so I'm pretty interested.
Thank you, Owen. We'll get an answer for you. All right, anybody else in opposition of the application? All right, with that, I'd like to invite the applicant up and discuss that question about the north pond overflows. Where does that go?
So at the north pond, there wouldn't necessarily be a failing as we're digging a pond. We don't have an embankment necessarily.
rupture.
But if that outlet pipe does plug up, or if some reason it does come any faster, which I don't see happening, I have modeled this where it should fail. And, I mean, we can look at the existing, how it's already ponding, and we have about 21 CFS leaving the major storm event. And with our pond, we have cut that flow in half to 10 CFS. in the major storm event. If that, there's really no failing, I guess. I mean, that's probably the most that they're gonna see is that 10 CFS. So we have cut the drainage in half, and yeah, the water still remains going down the ditch too. If it does happen to overflow, it's gonna divert down the ditches also. It's not gonna go straight towards them.
Is there a culvert in the highway right there
Yes, there is.
that goes underneath?
Yeah, there's a 24-inch culvert that goes underneath.
So why do you say it'll go down the ditch and not through the culvert?
If that 24 does get maxed out by chance, then we're back
Oh,
to
the
the first.
culvert.
Yes, then we're back to the first scenario where it's not gonna be over the existing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so there's no further comment against or in opposition, so I'll close the floor to public comment. And I will ask a motion from the commission so we can discuss further.
Mr. Chairman, I'll offer a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. So again, I want to remind everybody that the rezone was a separate issue. This is to approve the housing as it is. So if it goes, if they respond and go back to the commission and they approve, and then if we approve this, everything goes through. If we say no now and the commission approves, then this would come back to us. Correct, Mr. Brown? Okay. So right now, we have a motion to approve as is drawn right now with the layout, the roads, drainage, everything you see on the screen. Any discussion, commission?
I'd like to know, just in that last discussion, I understand the culvert's only so big, so it's only gonna handle so much water, but, one of my concerns is that then we're just okay with putting all the excess water in the county ditch and letting it be that problem, right? And I'd like to know from from Terry or the county road department if they'd be all right with having a bunch of extra water in that ditch, and what does that do to the the viability of the road, I guess. I don't know that that's necessarily the best plan, to just take your excess water, shoot it in the county ditch, and well, it's not our problem anymore type of deal. I guess that's one of my concerns.
All right, any other discussion, commissioners? No. No.
Mr. Chair, the only thing comment would be is it's still on staff analysis. It doesn't meet our requirements, so.
Correct.
So, thank you.
All right, Mr. Scott, would that be a question you want to ask the developer directly?
I guess if have you already had that conversation? Or you want to step back up and answer it, I guess? That'd be great.
Yeah, that's been included in our model also. In these models, they're very comprehensive two-dimensional models.
But have you
where
talked
random grid-
to the county highway department about that possibility?
No, because we're not sending more water down in the ditches. I've analyzed how much water is existing in the ditches and how much water is proposed, even in a failure, and it's showing less water going down the ditches. These ponds are substantial in size where they will hold a lot more water, I guess, than it looks like on paper. So,
Okay, thanks.
yep.
All right, commissioners, any additional comments? Seeing none, I will do roll call. So again, this is for approval of the development as it's shown right here. Commissioner Hogan,
No.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensted,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
No.
Commissioner Scott,
No.
Commissioner Poppins.
No.
That's me. I'm going to say, vote no. And if the commission overturns it, then we'll come back and discuss this again. All right, application number 3, please.
With that, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to step down.
Yes.
As I mentioned, the briefing form is that the applicant for this item is a sitting county commissioner. I consulted with legal counsel, and upon their discussion and our review is that I've decided to recuse myself from the staff report and the staff recommendation for this item. And so in doing so, then I requested assistance from the zoning director from Turner County. And I and staff have assisted Turner County in the past with conflicts of interest. And so this is what I'll call kind of a pro bono thing, is that we work with each other on it. And so she has prepared the staff report that was included in your packet. And so, again, I'm going to recuse myself, so I'm going to leave the room. And Jen will stay to record the vote. But there won't be any county staff that will be available to assist you with anything. I've advised Daisy, and I'll advise you, is that if you have any questions, concerns throughout the process, you've handled these before, it's, if you have concerns or questions, what needs to be at that point in time. But with that, I'll recuse myself, and Daisy Johnson from Turner County will be assisting you with this. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Hey, everybody. I'm Daisy Johnson. I'm from Turner County. So the applicant is the Poppins Family LLC. They own, let's see here, sorry, I'll get used to your stuff, I promise. Okay, so we're looking out southwest of Harrisburg, where that little red star is. The Poppins family currently has, or the Poppins Family LLC currently has 4 building eligibilities on this section. And they are looking to transfer those 4 over to this one. They currently have 5 building eligibilities surrounding this parcel, so they're looking to move 4 more over. Sorry. So this would be advisable as long as any of the future, they have all the permits meet the requirements. That all access to the public roads must be approved by the appropriate road authority. And all right to farm notices shall be filed with register of deeds before building permits be advised. And that they just obtain all the building permits. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you.
Yes.
Commissioners, any questions for the analysis of the application number 3?
So you said they have 5 and they're going to move 4, so that's going to be a total of 9?
Yes, total in this section, which is, sorry, I'll get used to yours. Which would be in, it'd be the northwest quarter of section 7, which is this one.
Which would actually be classified as a subdivision.
Excuse me?
That would actually be classified as a subdivision.
Right now, I think we're just moving housing eligibilities. But Commissioner Hogan, do you have a question for?
No.
I do.
Yes.
So in your analysis of the comprehensive plan, and even in your report, it says that, and in the comprehensive plan, it does say the promotion of clustering houses. But then also in there, it multiple times states that we should keep our densities to 1 per quarter. So how do you see that? How do you interpret that when it
It's kind of a
clearly
catch-22. Yep.
clearly kind of states both things, and I
It
guess that's
does.
where I get confused.
Yeah, it does state both things in your comprehensive plan, that Typically, there would be 4. You divide this into 4 sections, and they would be evenly distributed. But also in your comprehensive plan that you approved in 2005, it does state that they want to promote clustering homes so we can sustain the agricultural in that area. So I guess that's up to you guys to decide which way you want this one to go. Unfortunately, sorry. As zoning directors, we just get to put it back on the board. We
Yeah,
just present,
yeah.
you guys have to make the
Okay,
decision.
I just wanted to, yeah, I just was curious if you noticed that too also, that it's
Yeah.
basically somewhat speaks out of both sides. of
And,
it.
yep, and to our benefit, our Turner County zoning ordinances are very similar to yours, so. But yes, we fight the same battles also in Turner County because we are close to Minnehaha and Lincoln as well, so.
Yep. Commissioners, any additional questions for staff? Thank you very much. All right, at this time, I will ask anybody in favor of the application to come forward. Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. The application or representative come forward and speak.
Thank you. Mike Nadolski, Lynn Jackson, Schultz and LeBrun, here on behalf of Poppins Family LLC. I wanted to start just based on all the conversations that we've had. This application is actually based on a zoning concept that's been at play here in Lincoln County for the better part of 25 years. The 1 per 40/40, or 1 per 40, plus the transfer of eligibilities existed when you adopted the 1995 zoning ordinance. And that was confirmed again when you did the 2005 comprehensive plan and you validated it again in 2009. So this isn't anything new to Lincoln County. It's been here for a while, and it's been a zoning tool that was adopted by your predecessors to preserve ag land. And as you pointed out, Commissioner Scott, to consolidate those building eligibilities. So one of the things that I wanted to point out to you is that the transfer component is as old as the building eligibility component. So that's not new, not a new concept. This is a question about how you're going to use the land, and I think Commissioner Hogan, you talked about it should be a subdivision, and I agree with you. It will be, and it'll be subject to your subdivision ordinance and all those requirements. So I'm not here in front of you talking about how it's going to be constructed. Those are questions that you can address later on when you look at the preliminary plan and apply your subdivision ordinance. This is how you're going to allow the land to be used. I think that you entertained probably about 9 of these applications in 2021, near as I can tell by my count. So within the last year with COVID, I mean, this is not something new. So you're talking about a zoning tool, again, that's 25 years old. The transfer is that old. And when it comes to your comprehensive plan, really checks all the boxes. This move is not going to impact any of your 1320 setbacks for your CAFOs or anything like that. It seeks to move those building eligibilities farther up north. And again, it's going to qualify as a subdivision ordinance, and so you can address all your concerns about drainage and access to the public highways through that ordinance that you adopt. The owners have indicated that they would work through that process to address concerns about the number of accesses. You're not going to increase the number of people that are building houses on that particular section. And so the amount of traffic, for the most part, isn't increasing like you would be if you were rezoning it to have 1 acre lots. I mean, there's a finite amount of building eligibilities that you can put on this property. I noticed that there were some calls for postponing this, and we've already postponed this once to address the conflict of interest issue. The issues that were raised in that correspondence are issues that are better placed with the subdivision type questions that you can address. They don't have anything to do with how you utilize the actual property. So again, it's an old zoning concept, not new to Lincoln County. I think it checks all the boxes. It's not leaving any building eligibilities from the sending parcel. And for those reasons, I'd ask you to approve it. And I'm at your disposal for addressing any questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant?
Would you care to address, is there any certain reasons, I mean, why your client is seeking to do this?
Well, I think it's the same reason that 9 other people have come to you and asked to move those building eligibilities. They're owned by landowners. I shouldn't say that they're owned, but they're valued as assets by everyone that has the land. And so, again, 4 individuals could, without going through the conditional use process, place rural residential homes there. But this is just like another aspect of that tool to consolidate them. So why do people do that is because they want to utilize that asset. Sometimes land changes hands and the people that own it either want to place homes on there or whatever. It's just like any other property right that you have.
In your research, did you come up with anybody else that had transferred that many eligibilities at one time?
No, you did one for 3 farther south last year in 2021. This is 4. You don't have a limit. And you know, at the end of the day, what you do in your comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance is your prerogative. I mean, that's what you're here for as a planning board. And if you want to change the comprehensive plan to utilize different tools, that's your prerogative, and that goes through a process where you recommend it and can be voted on countywide. If you want to amend your zoning ordinance to do so, then you can do that too. But this is anything new. The COVID issues and people wanting to move out into the rural area may have made people want to do it more, and you're seeing people throughout, you know, the United States moving to South Dakota for those reasons. So demand generates a desire to do that. And so a lot of them were 1. 1 was for 3 and 1 was for 2.
Do you feel this puts any added burden onto the township and its infrastructure when you concentrate them into one area versus spreading them around?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think that that's something that you can address through the subdivision process. And if it does, there's tools for the township to assess a property like that for whatever increased demand for maintenance or whatever. So the township's not without its tools to address that, I don't think.
Have you guys talked to the township about this? Have you been in discussion with them and visited with them on for, against? any extra
Not for
burdens?
this. I mean, I think it's clear that at least one of the township individuals is against it. But, you know, I mean, philosophically and just from a way that you look at this, this isn't the place where you address that. If there's concerns about those things, then I think it's addressed through the, you know, and I'm not trying to make light of it. If there's an issue in terms of what impact it has on the roads, or how they're gonna be maintained, or how many entrances you have on a township road, you address that through your subdivision ordinance.
Yeah. Well, I also think that's part of the problem we have is that the townships don't, they don't have enough say in this process, and then we do it, and then the townships are burdened with the extra traffic, and we've got a lot of examples of this around the county right now, and it's something we're gonna be discussing a little bit later, and so it's obviously it's a concern of mine, it's something that I'm
Sure.
sympathetic to.
Sure, and I guess I'd respond in this way. I think that they do have a say in it. I don't know that they've exercised that ability. So let's just take a shared township road, who maintains that? When you have, when there's a dividing line, by contract, you can decide how those things are gonna happen. A plat cannot be signed unless the approving authority, whoever has jurisdiction over the road, approves it. Now, what the townships could do, if there's those concerns, they can do what the state does, and that's adopt rules about how many approaches they're going to allow on a certain line. And as I told you before, from a financial standpoint, there's tools available. I can't tell you that they're being utilized, but they're not without statutory or legislative tools to do per foot assessments on those things. It's in the title under township roads.
Right, but you can see where that would make our decision easier if that discussion had already happened and we didn't have to force the townships into pulling that lever. And if the people that wanted to do this would go have that conversation with the townships and work that all out before you presented it here. And I don't like that, because it seems like then they have to react in kind of a backdoor way.
Sure. So here's the conceptual problem with that, though, and it was earlier, is like, if you bifurcate your decision between what are you gonna do zoning wise and what you're gonna do for a subdivision, you're putting landowners in a position where they have to go out and spend a lot of money on what they're gonna do by way of plats and everything like that, before you even get to the zoning part of it. And so you either have two ways in which you decide that. How are you gonna use the land? And if it's an appropriate use, how are you gonna construct it? And that's the point in time where I would submit that the township can become involved in it.
Yeah. Well, I guess we disagree on that, but.
We can
yeah.
agree to disagree.
I was just gonna say the same thing. I think we're gonna have to disagree. I think the
Yeah.
townships need to be involved immediately. I think, especially in this
Right.
case.
Then if that's the case, if that is the case, then you should write that into your rules.
Commissioners, any additional questions for the application? All right, with that, I will ask anybody in support of the application come forward and speak.
Corey Gronwald, 27404 470th. I actually live on the corner of 274th and 470th. First house there. I'm the one doing the buildings there. And we've had the discussion with driveways when we did the next two. So we're taking those two driveways, one driveway for two houses. And that was done last year, before we even tried last year to get that redone. Again, I do believe we got that approved. So the driveway thing, a few of the neighbors have come and talk to us about it. But the traffic thing is what I'm not understanding. Is you're another half mile down. So you got the same amount of traffic, it's just it's further down the road. So to address that issue, I don't quite understand where that's a problem on the traffic side of it. As far as the driveways and approval, we're more than willing to talk to the township on it. And I got a pond being dug there, maybe we do something else with the driveway on 274th and bring them around the other side, to the east side of where the pond is being dug. But as far as moving the eligibilities and the difference between them, I guess I don't understand what the traffic situation is.
All right, thank you, Corey. Anybody else in support of the application? All right, with that, I'll ask anybody in opposition of the application come forward and speak.
Don Hoffman, 47331 273rd Street. I think I'm fairly familiar with this piece of property. Just a reminder, with the assessed values going up the way they are, with $500,000 houses out in the country, you move for housing eligibilities out of Perry Township, you just cut their budget. The potential for them to maybe have $1.5 million more assessment. It sounds simple, yeah, let's just move these building eligibilities around. It used to be we couldn't do that. Then you had to have joining land. You had to own the land, you couldn't do it from, different people. Now we're starting to move them around from township to township. Just think if you were in the Perry Township Board, you just had $1.5 million worth of potential taken away from you. I'm in LaValle Township. That's great, you know. But what's fair is fair. Let's remember that.
Thank you. Anybody else in opposition of the application?
Does it bite?
Where did the pictures go?
I don't know.
Where did the pictures go? Where did the pictures?
Right under the camera by the mouse.
Yep,
It
by the
says
mouse.
place underneath. There you go.
Oh, there. Okay, sorry.
Okay, I'm Dana Hahn. I reside at 214 West 4th in Lenox, but I'm here this evening representing my mother, Iva Hahn, and her children. Besides me, I have two siblings, Mary Beth and Dave, that are here. Our family farm, which is why I'm up here, is at the intersection of 274th Street and 470th Avenue. We own the cropland there. Recently, I was looking at the abstract my grandmother got when she bought the farm in 1948. I was fascinated. The first entry was made in 1887 before it was even a state, and it included direction on section lines, and it states that all section lines will be public highways. Way back then, they needed to be making rules for how the use of the land and for the good of everyone involved, and we continue that to this day. In establishing this potential housing area, I think there needs to be a knowledge of and following of existing guidelines so that there's an organized housing development plan that addresses various needs for safe and healthy living. In the situation being considered tonight, we have questions about water drainage. When my parents were farming, there were specific guidelines governing drainage ditches. They were not to be randomly changed. The impact of water flow was very important so that no farm was suddenly having water back up and flooding issues. This is obviously a great concern for us. Want to ask what plans are in place to ensure proper water drainage, not only for the location requesting the eligibility transfer, but also as it would impact the properties around it. In addition, we're wondering what are the plans for sewage handling as a cluster of housing units that would exist in this request for eligibility transfer. This becomes a significantly different issue when you have a cluster of homes versus one or two. Lincoln County has, in the other developments, stated that one septic system for the entire development should be the standard, and that's what we would be requesting to be added to the conditional use plan if it does pass tonight. Another note, Harold Timmerman, our Lincoln County Emergency Manager, has stated on many occasions that he's been concerned that none of these developments should be built unless it includes a wide circle turnaround paved road to accommodate emergency services and vehicles. And much as we don't like it, that is part of what we need to think about. And you just can't rely on the township roads to get some of those emergency care vehicles in. So we would also ask that if this request was passed tonight, that would be added to the conditional use plan. And these are just some of the issues that we see that need to be addressed before any further action is taken. Okay. And we're just showing some pictures of current drainage areas in that area right now. And this is the pond that exists at just off the intersection.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in opposition of the application?
My name's Stephen Apple. I live at 24472 470th Avenue, just south of Hans there and all that. My concern is we just went through 2 applications for agriculture rural. And now you go to one who says, well, I've got the easements, I'm just going to transfer easements and backdoor all that engineering and effort. We have drainage problems out in this area. And the traffic, who's going to fix the roads? Let alone snow in the wintertime, who's going to plow snow? Every time somebody calls from a housing area, how come they can't get out? Sometimes they don't plow for 2 weeks out there. And then I worry about, they all get kids and their kids all run up and down the roads in cars, and let alone letting dogs run all over everywhere with that density of houses. Yeah, I'll shut up before I get in trouble. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. All right, anybody else in opposition of the application?
My name's Philip Fett, and we have the farm ground right across the road from here. If you want to know the official address, it's 427 470th Avenue. We've got multiple concerns. I'm not even sure where to start on it. First of all, I'm a little bit disagreement of the continuous transferring of property. To me, that should be property that is actually adjoining or continuous in a section. When you have a public right-of-way going between 2 properties, that doesn't really seem to be continuous in my opinion. I also had a concern about townships, and we have a unique problem here where the land is in one township and the township maintaining the road is another one. And up until this point, it appears to be that there is a lot of miscommunication or understanding on who's in charge of driveways and who's in charge of maintaining the roads. And earlier, you guys were talking about concerns of developments and it getting a little bit out of hand. I think this transferring of eligibilities is a little bit outdated for this location in the county because we're within 2 miles of industrial park and T, and just 1.5 miles basically kitty-cornered across. And if this were allowed to happen, you're gonna have a 1/2 mile of homes blocking access to 470th Avenue. And when we talk about development and the future development, it makes it very difficult to figure out how to develop on from there. And so those would be some of our concerns. And as far as saving farm ground, it really doesn't matter if you're saving farm ground in this quarter or that quarter, it's still gonna end up being in houses. And if the houses were built in the quarter that they're attached to, they would actually be closer to a paved road than where they're going to now. They'd be within a 1/2 mile of County Road 111, where now they're gonna be a minimum of 1 mile from a paved road and actually 1.5 miles when you go to the 1/2 mile line. So those are some of our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Anybody else like to speak against the application?
Sandy Braun, 478, wait a minute. Where do I live? Oh, 47891, nope, that's, my parents' address is the opposite of ours.
That's okay.
27891. I gotta write it. There we go. 27395, 470th Avenue. I know how to get there, okay?
We're fine,
It's
we're
one of
okay.
those days. Oh. Tonight, my concerns are first that about a Poppins Addition sign that's been out there for 2 years already when they started the first eligibilities, which I have a picture of. I don't know. I have it here too. If we can get the camera to show it. There we go.
There we go.
2 years ago already, this was placed out, which would be in Corey's property, or his lot when they started. And that, where the proposed eligibilities are wanting to be transferred since then, since the beginning of 2020, they've been trying to sell these lots already without even having the transfers approved. And I've also got, where they've had them on Facebook and things of 6 lots available versus just the 3 lots that were in the housing eligibilities that were available to begin with. We did call planning and zoning the planning and zoning office last year as we were inquiring on what was going on due to the signage that was posted. And at that point, we got told that there was nothing, that the county knew nothing about any developments going on or any proposals. But again, we are showing that there's 7 houses, but only 3 eligibilities, and we could not get any answers. We did go to the townships and ask about driveways. And as of right now, I do know that Perry Township did send a letter down for today. And so I hope that gets read, because I know it was requested that that gets read today. Because they are not able to be here tonight due to equalization meetings. There's confusion on driveway permits due to the 2 different townships and which ones are supposed to have. Given the driveway permits, we also have a safety concern on a corner driveway that comes right out into the intersection on one already existing. And I understand that I've been told that, well, it was grandfathered in. Yeah, it's grandfathered in as a field driveway, not as a residential driveway for residential use. We have one also that we were told when we got our driveway permit that we could not use the corner driveway coming out into the intersection. And it's a blind corner there, and cars come in and out. I sit in my couch and pray to God that we don't have someone gonna get killed in that corner. And then I just ask, again, as tonight, you've got questions on things being brought up. They brought up all their issues and platted out with drainage and different things. We have nothing. We've gotten absolutely nothing on drainage issues. We've got driveways coming in on roads that there's no way a fire truck could get in and out. There's all kinds of concerns already on the 3, so I ask you to table the transfer until issues are resolved on the others that have been out there.
Thank you. All right, I think at this point, I'll read that one letter that was mentioned. Since Mr. Brown usually does this and he is not here right now, I think it is fair that this be brought up, and does council agree? Yep. Okay. All right, to Lincoln County Planning and Zoning Board of Commissioners. Perry Township members are not available to be at the meeting tonight due to township equalization. I'm a terrible reader, so I really apologize ahead of time. A lot of times it's what I mean, not what I say. So, town equalization meetings being held tonight by law, so we are asking the agenda item number 3 be tabled at this meeting so that we can properly address current issues of the driveway permits, safety and emergency management issues, and pending lawsuit for current lots that are being built now. We request that these driveways be removed since permits are not legal at this time. We also ask that new business also be tabled so we can participate. Work session, transfer housing eligibility. Thank you. Sincerely, Edward Feet,
Fett?
from Perry Township. So it continues as a second portion. I request this letter be forwarded to all planning and zoning commissioners and be read aloud at the hearing, item number 3, if not tabled. Back in August of 2020, Perry and LaValley Townships were asked to meet with the current residents that were around the proposed property that is asking for the transfers tonight to look at the driveway issues and concerns with the township roads conditions due to construction of these new properties and who would be responsible for what. First, there's an old farm corner driveway coming to the intersection that has a safety hazard now that they are being used for residential use. I met with Chuck from Melt, from SDLTAP, to get guidance on the safety concern and how to close a permit driveway number 1 is to corner of 274th Street and 470th Avenue. The email from Chuck Formelt, I apologize, Chuck, if I did that wrong, was sent to Toby Brown from Ed and Lois Fett on May 13th, 2021, as a concern on how to handle this driveway. Also, due to the signage posted that lists 7 lots for sale, there's an issue of how the driveways will cause safety issues and meet all emergency management needs as well. We feel this letter that Chuck provided is totally ignored by planning and zoning. The second building permit was given, but a driveway access was not approved. The Perry Township was threatened to be sued by Mr. Michael Poppins if access was not given. Cheryl, the clerk with Perry Township, came down and asked Toby Brown and the Planning Commission, Planning and Zoning Office, what needed to be done to get out of the lawsuit, at which time Toby Brown presented her with the papers assigned for the driveway access. The paperwork was not valid since the driveway access should have been signed and given by the LaValley Township. LaValley Township, as of today, has not given access to the driveway that was given a building permit on 9/27 of 2021 without a driveway access permit. The driveways were in question of the closeness of the lot sizes and the quantity of driveways accessed per letter from Chuck also. Sincerely, Ed. The rest of this,
I think that was, the last page has
yeah,
what.
I think so.
Yeah.
The rest of it was, I received, pleasure meeting you. One last here.
If you read that last page.
Yep.
Yep.
From Charles Formet on April 9th, 2021. It was a pleasure meeting with you at the intersection of 470th Avenue and 274th Street concerning the proposed driveway entrances to your township road. The proposal by the developer of 6 lots with individual driveways into them for access from the township road would be very difficult to manage. In my observation of this proposal, 6 approaches within about 1,200 feet would be unsafe and difficult to maintain. The problem with the maintenance lies in the tendency for every entrance trying to match into the township road with a very short distance. With that many entrances, drainage may be difficult to maintain between each culvert. The safety and liability issue with the township would be greatly enhanced. The safety and liability issue with the township would be greatly enhanced. My recommendation would be to develop a frontage road to run parallel with the township road with 2 entrances, one at each of the subdivision. These could be accomplished at either front or the back of the lots. From Chuck Formelt, Technical Advice Provider, SDLTAP, Local Transportation Assistance Program. All right. So anybody else in opposition of the application?
Hi, my name is Melinda Holscher. I'm associated with 27427 470th Avenue. Just as I've been listening, a lot of discussion and words thrown around regarding subdivision, both by the council, by attorney, by people in the audience, and the horse is already out of the barn. The sign posted looks like a subdivision. How it's being developed looks like a subdivision. We're using words subdivision, and yet we're not using any rules or any application of what a subdivision looks like. So just as I said, I think the horse got a little bit out of the barn before a lot of thought could be put into what's happening on the corner of 470th. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, at this time, anybody else in opposition of the application?
I'm David Hackert, 27383 470th Avenue. I'm on just south of that intersection. I guess I just want to bring up the road, and apparently the townships aren't here to, ask questions, but the grading has been an issue. I've been there for 15 years now, and I got some pictures here. We were trying to get Perry Township to come in to grade the road, and they tell me I can't vote in their township because I'm in La Valley, so I'm on the other side of the road. So I can't vote to get gravel or any of that stuff to take care of our road. And when we were talking to them, instead of them grading
Jen, can we pull up those pictures that Dave is showing? Can you put it underneath about where the mouse area is?
Yep. This is on the corner where they're building. When we were asking them to grade our road and that, because that's what they take care of, they put up 3 signs that say minimum access, dead-end road, and they got 3 signs saying it's a dead-end road and it's minimum maintenance. So they don't hardly ever grade that thing. We did get a new grader this year. It's been a little bit better, but when they were doing construction there, the road, the spring turned into a muddy mess. I mean, we had to use 4-wheel drive to go down the road just to get through it by the cemetery there. And by the cemetery, it plugs in snow all the time. The grader shows up 2-3 days later. We got 2 school buses that come down that road every day. And we've had cars plugged right there at the cemetery, stuck in the middle, and the school buses come, and I've had to go out with my tractor, pull the car out of the middle of the road so the buses could get through. I plowed through there with my plow truck many times over the years, just so we can get in and out to work. So, yeah, it's only 7 more houses, but that's 14 minimum more cars going up and down that road. Plus all the construction workers, it's just, that stuff has to be, I guess, acknowledged. And then I got one more thing on my phone. I guess, as far as the construction guys, they're driving excavators down the road, and at this time, he went right through the power line. And then they didn't call it in, they just kept driving. So, they're not following any of the county laws either. So, they can say what they want, but until somebody comes, we need a sheriff's department or somebody to come out and enforce something. The speed limit's supposed to be 35 miles an hour down that road, and cars go flying down that thing. And someone took down the signs, I don't know who did, but I guess, I don't know if you guys do that or what, but I would like to have the signs put back up on both ends so people know that it's 35, because I have kids that come in and out of there too. And I just don't want anybody to get hit, so that's my main concern. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Can I say anything about what he said about the road?
When we have questions, we'll approach you and ask those, yes. All right. So first I'll ask any additional people in opposition.
Hey, David Apple, I live at 62 470th, just to south of where this is happening. And I just got to bring up the road one more time now. Some time back, they did some work on the interstate, and we had a lot of heavy 18-wheelers pulling gravel trucks and trucks full of busted-up concrete. For probably almost a year up and down that road, and it really took a beating. A couple years ago, it was almost impossible to get from our house either south or north. It was, you almost had to have a four-wheel drive. It was really, really bad. And it hasn't really, some years it's okay, but a lot of years it's not. I know he said that he doesn't understand how a couple more houses is going to make a difference, but it's a couple more houses now, a couple more horses after that, and pretty soon, I'm telling you what, I hate to say when I was younger, but when I was younger, if you saw 10 cars a day on that road, it was a busy day. Now, there's as much traffic on that road as there was on the interstate back in 60, 67. And I don't even know where all these people are coming from or going, but there's a lot of traffic on that road. And like I said, there were a couple years there where we weren't even sure we could get out, you know. And so, and then it's split between Perry and La Valley, like each one owns half. It's every now and then you get a good grader guy and it works pretty, and they do put a lot of gravel on there, I will say, but it's still, when it rains, you're taking a big risk. I'd also like to readdress the driveway that dead ends into the intersection. I just can't see how that could be legal. A number of times, he's got construction guys that come out to that house, and more than once, we've had to put on the brakes pretty good because they just shoot from where they're coming right into his driveway, and it's just a matter of time before there is an accident there. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, David. All right, anybody else in opposition of the application?
Well, 12.
Dave Gillespie, 1125 East Elder Street, Canton, South Dakota. First, I want to thank Mr. Dudalski for his dialogue on the Poppins family and the people that, the Reeves buildings, I think, that have went up there. I took it upon myself, I heard about this in Canton, and I had to drive up there. And I'll be brief, Jerry. I drove up there and I turned off at the Harrisburg exit, went west, then I went a mile south. And some of you commissioners have been there. And I seen those 2 buildings and I thought, this is wet. This is all wet up here. And as far as sewer systems go, I don't even know if a mound system would take care of it on a rainy year. So I seen the splice in the electrical line where the excavator tore down the electricity overhead the township road. And I'll just comment on Mr. Fett. We turned down a development a few years ago when I was on the commission right across the road. And he spoke earlier, so thank you.
Thank you, David. I'm just trying to make sure we approach everything the right way, so I'm just taking my time. Anybody else in opposition of the application? All right, at this time, I'll close the floor to public comment. And I'll ask for motion from the commission.
I actually want to make a motion to table it. We are, none of the township, they're not even being represented here. I think it would be crass of us to go forward without their input. Obviously, we're moving eligibilities from one to another. That's a problem in my eyes. I have been out there, so I've seen the construction. I've seen them whipping in and out of that corner driveway. It's not safe. It's just not safe. So yeah, I think without having the townships here to talk, also we're gonna do a working meeting regarding eligibilities here later this evening. I just think we need to table this and see where that goes before we go further with this.
I'll second Scott.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? At this point, we can ask questions of the representatives to help us determine for table or what action we take. If the commission would like.
So just to be clear, so the motion to table and seconded, we were voting specifically on that. So if we vote not to table, then would we address whether or not to approve it or not, right?
Correct, then we'd ask for
I just wanna
another
make
motion.
sure.
You can ask for
Based
another
on
motion.
procedure, so. it's okay.
Correct. And I also want, just put this out there, right, we're moving on the rezone. To move, I'm sorry, not rezone, moving housing eligibilities. Our primary focus is not drainage and all that, it's moving housing eligibilities. So we have a motion and a second. Discussion.
I concur. This was basically over, the last week. I've thought a lot about this. I drove out there over the weekend just to make sure that I could visualize what was going on, and then, to further understand what we talked about last month, coming into this month with the working meeting, and ultimately, hopefully, a joint conversation with the commission itself. I came with the same plan also to motion to table it. So.
Additional conversation?
There's a part of me that would like to vote on it up or down, just to see if it would go, because if it would fail, I'd like to start have the appeal process go towards the commissioners. And I think, we talk about this every meeting almost, about whether it's just what I said about the rural residential or the transferring of eligibilities. And the only way we're gonna get some of these rules changed is if some of these hot potatoes land back in the county commission and they get to deal with them firsthand. So I vote not to table it, and let's decide what we want to do with it.
All right, other conversation, questions? I'm on both sides of this. I would really like to have the townships comment on this. On the other hand, this is a housing transfer according to our rules currently that is legal. It's not about roads, driveway accesses as much as I want it to be. It's legally not part of the conversation. They have the eligibilities, they can move it from one to another. Again, there's nothing they're doing is illegal or wrong, and if it turns into subdivision or how that plays out, that we address later through our existing county rules, plan zones and all that sort of stuff, drainage, that all is addressed later. On the other hand, it's a heck of a change for this area, and it really addresses a lot of people. So I'm trying, right now is between what I feel is right or wrong or what's legal. In my brain, do we have the right to say no because we don't feel it's right? I don't know. I still don't know where I'm gonna go. That's my thoughts on that one. If we do table it, we have again another month to address it, talk about it again. Public input has been closed, so next month there will be no public input if this comes back as a tabled agenda item. And also what we're talking about in the working session after this, I feel should not affect this application because this came forward long before any rules changes or anything that could come forward in the future. So this is a separate item outside of our working agenda, even though they have the same, whatever you want to say, the same. Again, I'm going to end, I don't know what to say. All right, if there's no other further discussion, I'll do roll call. We're good? All right. And this is a motion to table. Yes,
At the next meeting, would you take advisement to like reopen public comment? That is something that you might consider if you need to at the next meeting.
definitely would like to consider it. I don't know what our bylaws offhand. I think once we close it, I think it's done, but I would, if that's an option, I would like to do that, yes.
I would double check with your state's attorney on that, but I think we've had to do that with Turner County. We've asked to reopen it at the next tabled meeting, so.
Thank you. Yeah, no, the public input's key in all these decisions. I mean, the public lives there, the public is part of this, and county is public and all that. So if that's an option, that'd be great. Okay, we'll double check. So right now, it'll be a motion table. Any additional comments? We good? Commissioner Hogan,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
No.
Commissioner Ensted,
No.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins has recused himself from this. I will, Commissioner Jennings going to vote to table. So this will be tabled till next month. We'll learn a little bit more, and we get the input from the road districts. We can discuss this afterwards. Thank you. All right, Jen, we notify Toby?
When you bring this up again, will those of us who have been notified this time will be notified again so we can attend that meeting? That discussion?
Have to ask that of staff.
If we reopen it as a public hearing, it'll be re-noticed in the paper and the signage and everything, if it's opened as a, not the paper, sorry, just the sign.
So it's a little bit more difficult also since we don't have our legal counsel here to give us the exact what will happen, so.
And I didn't bring mine either, so that didn't help anything either, so.
No, yep. So I think since this is tabled, we revisit this next month and we'll move on to item number 4.
It should be on the agenda, so if you watched the website for the agenda, it should be in a number on the next agenda, if anybody's looking for it.
I would say it's pretty safe to say it'll be on next month's agenda.
Yes.
Yes, it'll be on next month's agenda for sure, yes.
You definitely need to note about reopening the public
Yep.
comment. Moving on till we can come in.
Yeah, so at this time, oh, there's Mr. Brown. I think we're ready for number 4, Mr. Brown.
Just to, I guess Daisy was kind of informing me a little bit about the action that you took. And so in order to have public comment at the next meeting, as you're aware, we re-advertise again. So I assume that's what you would like to do, so that
Yes.
public comment.
Yes.
So if the township or whoever wants to talk, we'll just go through that process. So how that works is, so we pay for the, so on the first go-round, the applicant pays, but on the second go-round, we pay for that, so, okay? So we will put that, it'll be a regular public hearing agenda item on the next agenda.
Thank you.
Yep. Sorry, that's the longest break I've ever had in between here. I gotta get myself
welcome.
going again here again, so, yeah. Yeah. So this next is the applicant owner for this next item is Core Properties LLC. Location of this property is approximately 1.02 miles southeast of the city of Harrisburg. Parcel size is approximately 2 acres. Purpose for this application is conditional use permit application. The applicant is requesting a contractor shop and storage yard on the property. This contractor shop is proposed to be 48 feet by 90 feet. And again, contractor shop in Lincoln County is primarily storage of goods and services to be utilized on a different site other than that site. As you can see, the property is zoned C commercial. The property that is directly to the east, that was rezoned to I-1 light industrial to be utilized for warehousing. Prior to, I think it was 2017, we did not allow warehousing in the commercial district, and so that property was rezoned, and they do RV storage there on that property. So again, the property on this aerial, the aerials that we have on the website are approximately 2 years old. They did just fly a few weeks ago, so those will be updated pretty soon. But we did approve by conditional use permit a warehouse on that property previously. So these are some shots of that warehouse would be looking directly on I believe it's the east one. So this was the site plan that was submitted with the application. Again, the proposed building would be the one down here, which is the 48 by 90 foot building. Comprehensive plan, as I know in the staff report, identifies this property as a nodal commercial area. This is an existing, it's called La Valley Business Park, so it is an existing industrial park. Again, adjacent zoning is like zoning as this application, as well as like uses of this application. Staff finding is that this application is consistent with the comprehensive plan and with the zoning ordinance. So staff does have some recommended conditions if so approved by the board. With that, I'd be happy to answer your questions that you have for staff at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Yep.
Commissioners, any questions for staff?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, at this time, I'll ask anybody in favor, or I'll ask the applicant to come forward and talk about their application.
Good evening. My name is Michael Waldner. I live in 46961 273rd Street, T, South Dakota. And this is going to be a rental property.
Could you speak in the microphone a little bit more? I'm sorry.
This building will be a rental property.
Okay.
Is that all you need to know?
All right, commissioners, any further questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, at this time, anybody in favor of the application? All right, anybody in opposition of the application? All right, I'll close the floor to public comment, and I'll ask a motion from the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the conditional use permit.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any conversation? All right, seeing none, I'll do roll call. Commissioner Hogan,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Anstead,
Yes.
Commissioner Green, Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
and Commissioner Jungling is also a yes. All right, number 5, Mr. Brown.
Okay, this next item is an application The applicant for this item is Chad Javers, Javers Companies. And the location of this is approximately 0.74 miles southeast of the city of T. The parcel size on this is 5.01 acres in size. As you can see, the property is zoned commercial as well as property, adjacent properties. This would be the right-of-way, the Interstate 29 would be on the east side of the property there, as can be seen on this photo here. So this property was approved for a conditional use permit in 2015. At that time, the applicant proposed, I believe, 6 buildings, and Chad will correct me if I'm wrong on that, but 6 buildings and some outside storage on there. And at the time too, I believe this was predates me, but at the time, I believe we issued him a building permit for 6 buildings as well. Chad then contacted the office and we talked about the previous approval on the 3 conditions of approval. And I really felt that this should be revisited as an amended conditional use permit because he is modifying 2 of the, he's proposing 2 buildings there, or 4 buildings, sorry. But essentially he's modifying them a little bit. And so to get us back into compliance with what we had, and then to add conditions that we typically add to this type of a use now. And again, this is warehousing, storage, mini storage, warehouse, self-storage type buildings. But the comprehensive plan does identify this property as urban expansion for the city of T. What's unique about the city of T of any of our municipalities is they review site plans. So even if it's not a true subdivision, we have a working relationship with the city of T staff that they review all site plans and approve all site plans, grading, drainage, for their requirements as well. The city of T has tree requirements and different things and fencing requirements. So I believe, and I hadn't talked to Chad lately on this one, but I believe that's been submitted and is being, considered by the city of T or for approval, which is part of our condition. Adjacent zoning, as I showed you before, is like zoning and like uses on the property. We do have conditional use permits on all of those adjacent properties as well, there that have like conditions. And I think in discussing this with Chad, I think that the concern of some of the people in the area was the outside storage part of this. So this proposed application would involve putting buildings essentially where outdoor storage was or proposed to be. So that should alleviate some of the concerns that some of the adjacent properties had. And so finding of this in the staff analysis was that this application is consistent with the Lincoln County Comprehensive Plan and with the zoning ordinance as conditioned with these conditions. This one's a little bit unique where what I'm proposing is that we would amend the original conditional use permit in 2015, but essentially overwrite those 3 conditions that were in there, replace them with these conditions here. And I believe Chad's been aware of what these conditions are, but I don't believe he has any concerns with those at this time. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have for staff at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Commissioners, any questions for staff?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dobie. All right, this time I'll ask the applicant to come forward and speak on his proposal.
Chad Javers, 6900 Joven Circle, Sioux Falls. Looking at building the 2 buildings on the east side of the property there, as shown on the site plan, which I think I can go back to. How do I go back to that, Toby? Thank you. As you can see, the aerial photo before showed that we had the outdoor storage, which we had approved back in 2015. We want to get rid of that. We're looking at blacktopping the facility also to get rid of the gravel, which gets drug out onto the street also. I did talk to Kevin at the City of T, as the original site plan did have the 6 buildings on it. I wouldn't have to go back through their process of reapproval with them, and he was gonna send an email down basically giving his blessing that they were still abiding by their approval from 2015, I guess.
All right. Thank you, Chad. Commissioners, any questions of the applicant? All right, thank you. At this time, I'll ask anybody in favor of the application to come forward. All right, seeing none, I'll ask anybody in opposition of the application to come forward. Seeing none, I'll close the floor to public comment, and I'll ask for a motion from the commission.
I'll make a motion to approve. Scott?
Second, Green.
All right, we have a motion and second to approve. Commission, any discussion? And to clarify, the approval is to amend the 2015 conditions with the current conditions?
Correct.
And Mr. Javers, you've read them all, you have no issues with those?
Yep.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second with the amended conditions. Discussion? All right, I will do roll call. Commissioner Hogan,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensted,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
Commissioner Jungling is also a yes. All right, with that, we move on to number 6.
Yep. Okay, so this next item is an application from Chad Javers. The owner of this property is Carlson Holdings LLC. This property is approximately 350 feet north of the city of T, I should say corporate limits. So the city of T's has extended along Highway 106, so this is about 350 feet north of where their city corporate limits are. As you can see, this property is Zone C commercial, is surrounded by commercial as well. Parcel size is 1 acre in size. This property is currently vacant. Again, this aerial that I'm showing you is a couple of years old, so there's nothing really on the property currently. A vacant parcel of 1 acre. And so the applicant is proposing, or the purpose for this application for conditional use permit is a contractor shop and storage yard. The comprehensive plan identifies this property as urban expansion area for the city of T. So as I mentioned before, City of T is in the process of reviewing the site plan and approving essentially the site plan, which is, we approve that in conjunction. Adjacent zoning is light commercial, as I showed you, and similar uses are identified in those properties. Primarily in the Kerslick development, it is primarily storage units that are in that area. The finding in the staff report is that this application is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance as conditioned in the staff report. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have for staff at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Commissioners, any questions for staff? Thank you. All right, this time I will ask the applicant to come forward and discuss her application.
We're looking at building Chad Javers.
Thank you.
6900 Jovan Circle, Sioux Falls. We're looking at building a contractor shop for use as a rental property. The site plan, we've sent that through the city of T, and that has been approved now.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Javers? Seeing none, thank you, Chad. All right, at this time, I'll ask anybody in favor of the application to come forward. All right, I'll ask anybody in opposition of the application to come forward. Seeing none, I'll close the floor to public comment, and I'll ask for a motion from the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the conditional use permit.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion, commissioners? Seeing none, I will do roll call. Commissioner Hogan,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensted,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
and Commissioner Jungling is also a yes. Thank you. All right, with that, we move on to new business. Mr. Brown, you have something for a new business?
So at the previous planning commission meeting, it was discussed that we would put on the agenda an item for discussion of the transfer of building eligibility. And so, I don't know where that discussion is going to go. I guess there wasn't a lot of guidance given at that stage, but we'll let it go. But I thought that one thing I wanted to do was just kind of give you a little background on historical perspective of, you know, where we've been, where we are, and that kind of a issue. And I actually mentioned this to someone the other day, is that last year was the 50th anniversary of zoning in Lincoln County. So I know we didn't have a parade or nothing, you know, or a celebration or anything like that, but you know, it's pretty historical that, you know, in 1969-70, we adopted the first comprehensive plan in the county. And then in 1971, we adopted zoning and we adopted a subdivision ordinance. We also adopted a capital improvement plan. The only capital improvement plan that we've actually adopted in the county was 1971. So it's a pretty unique document to read. But 1971, that zoning ordinance was what I would best call pretty vague. We didn't have conditional uses, everything was permitted. And then the first thing they amended was to put conditional uses on items. But that time in 1971, a use in they had a agricultural district would have been a single-family dwelling. And so the restriction would have been is that you had to have at least an acre of land. And so if you had control of an acre of land, you could come into the department. And at that time we issued a $5 building permit. And that it was a $5 building permit, and we would issue a building permit to construct a single-family dwelling. And then in 1995 was the second zoning ordinance that we've adopted in the county. And so it was adopted in July, effective, you know, for those of you you adopt an ordinance and it takes time for publication and referendum and all that. It was legally effective on August 3rd, 1995. And that ordinance specifically called out what we call density zoning. So that was our first, incursion into density zoning. So at that time, what it stated is that there was an eligible building site, one per every quarter. So I know I always do, like the sign of the cross, is there would be 4 in the 160s. And then it also within that ordinance, it talked about a transfer of a building eligibility. But it restricted it from one quarter to another quarter. And so for those of you, and I notice whenever I say legal descriptions of quarter, I see people's eyes glaze over because, we're far removed from really doing that stuff anymore. But essentially what that meant is that they didn't transfer out of a section. They stayed within a section essentially. And so that prohibited transfer across roads, it prohibited transfers across right-of-way. It just essentially would have kept you within the same township even, because most townships don't cross into sections. And so that's what it was. And then in 2009, we adopted the current zoning ordinance. And at that time, we didn't tweak anything other than we changed the transfer of an eligibility from a quarter to a quarter to from a parcel to a parcel. And the same language exists. It has to be contiguous and under the same ownership. And so theoretically, it is possible that you could transfer it for sure over a section, but you could transfer it over multiple sections. And what we see, and I think what the concern of a lot of people is that the purchase of an eligibility, because it's kind of a finagled thing that concerns a lot of people. And so what that means is typically we see it in the developers and real estate professionals is they'll buy an acre and an eligibility contiguous to their own property, and then they come to us to transfer it. So the majority of transfers we actually do are that way over the years, is basically purchase of an eligibility, transfer of an eligibility. And then one other thing that I'll throw out there that, and building eligibility is what I think is totally fascinating amongst staff is that I'm gonna say over the last 2 years, building eligibilities was like not a big deal. Is that nobody was concerned about it, but I think now the value of them and the demand for them has really, I mean, it's, especially now with the appeals of property valuations, I'm gonna bet that that over the last 2 weeks, we've had multiple people come into the office asking, do I have an eligibility? And do I not have an eligibility? And then the other part about it that I think is worthy of discussion is that, you know, I hear this quite a lot lately is that people look at, they drive around, they look and they say, well, there's five houses in there. How does that happen? You know, can you guys not count to 4? You know, it's how come there's 5 or 6 within one area? Well, the other part about the ordinances is that, so the truth is it's 1 per quarter, but we also, what I'll say is we grandfathered. It's called a lot of record. So we said on August 3rd, 1995, everything before that, if it was platted, if it was a deed, if it was filed, that has an eligibility. So you get to the point where you can have more than 1 per quarter. And so that's my easy response is somebody will say, well, how come there's 5 there? I'll say a lot of record. And then they'll say, explain it to me. And I'll say, well, I can't explain it to you, but what we can do is I can show you how we determine it. And that we go to this office over here and we dig through record after record after record to determine what happened or if there was a plat. And the issue that we have in Lincoln County is that for a number of years, the Department of Equalization combined parcels. So there's a whole bunch of properties out there that are actually lot 1, lot 2, but you look at it on our parcel map and you'll just see 1 lot. So people call us and say, well, how can they put 2 houses there? Well, there was a number of years that the Department of Equalization would allow people to come in and say, well, I don't want 2 tax statements for this property, just combine them for me. And so we've stopped that. I mean, that doesn't happen anymore with that part of it, but it does create a lot of confusion out there about what exists as far as those, how many are available at that time. The other issue that I think that we're seeing now within the department is that, and I'll pull it up just to kind of show you, it's a little bit better visual, but so if you look at this kind of what I'll call pink, I guess, area, and some of my staff calls it red, I guess, but so this is the platting jurisdiction of Harrisburg and T, and you'll see that goes quite a ways on both sides. So they have sole jurisdiction over platting. So whenever someone wants to sell off an eligibility in 1, 2, 5 acres, they go work with the municipalities. Then they come to us for a building permit. Well, when they come to our office, you know, outside of this pink area, we have an application process for platting, and we say, is this for assignment of a building eligibility? So then we have a record of it, because what typically happens is 4 or 5 years down the road, nobody does anything, and all of a sudden they come build a house. Well, by then what we're seeing is that, you know, maybe mom and dad have passed away, the kids are inheriting the land now, and they're going, well, I don't think mom and dad gave an eligibility or sold an eligibility to that property. And so now we have civil disputes about, you know, who controls it, who doesn't control it. So that's, you know, that's really, there's really nothing we can do about that here, other than, you know, I've made aware those municipalities that, you know, when we're doing this, that we need to make sure that there's a record of why they're doing the platting that they're doing with that. And then, you know, beyond that is, you know, the lot of records is a big deal. I mean, you know, we've got one pending that'll come before you, the town of Schindler, you know, which isn't much of a town, I guess, but there's 20-some eligibilities that were platted lots from the 1800s that someone bought that, you know, we're going to have developed in those areas. And so, you know, that's just part of what we're dealing with, I guess. So I don't know, other than that, that's kind of background where we're at, how we got here, and then some potential issues. But, you know, beyond that, I don't know where you want to go with the discussions. I think that what I'll say is that I think staff has learned a lot from these ones that we've done over the last couple of years about different approaches that we do to some of these things. Sometimes the townships, one thing that I'll say that we're doing, and I think some of the townships are happy, some are not happy, is that, they all have to sign a plat. But the plat essentially means that there's access, which, under state law, I mean, if you have property, there is access. But one of the things that we're working with the townships on is that, we're not gonna approve building permits anymore unless they give us a written document. Because we've done a lot of verbal stuff over the years that, people go back on. So from here on out, we've made sure from January 1 is that they gotta give us something. It causes a lot of issues with the townships and stuff like that, but, I mean, they have jurisdiction over roads. Our department, this board, the county has no jurisdiction over these roads. And so we wanna make sure, and I've told them, we're partners in this deal. We've all, over the last 2 years, we've had explosion growth. I mean, the building permits that we've had have been, a lot. And I think the development's been a lot. I think there's a lot of things that are going on out here and that's why we've talked about the comprehensive plan. That's a critical part to all of this discussion, where we need to go. And I've said this to people privately, and I'll say it publicly, is that the comprehensive plan needs to be a bottom-up plan. Is that the challenges that we have in Lincoln County are unlike many counties that don't have these problems, and I shouldn't say problems, these are good problems to have, right? Growth, I mean, that's, we could be on the backside of this where it's like we don't have growth. But in doing that, there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of issues that need to be resolved. There's a lot of things that we're doing better than we used to do in the past with some of these things. But I think there's challenges there. So the comprehensive plan, I really believe, needs to be a bottom-up thing, is we need to work with the public to figure out what the proper, direction that we want to go as a county with some of these challenges that we have. But, beyond that is, the other issues that we have too is that, and I'll show you, it's one of these here. So, a lot of these, what I would say is, so you're gonna ask, why did in 1971 to 1995, why did we create this 1 per quarter? And the honest answer is, I don't know. I mean, it's, there's no real good record of why we did. But my guess is, a lot of it was because of the subdivisions. So this is a good example here, but there's all over the county. So without density zoning, all of these lots were created before 1995. And so an entire subdivision that, roads and drainage and all kinds of issues, that it's very difficult to do those things when it just comes like that. But so the 1 per quarter is really meant to prevent something like that happening. But then number 2, it's really to create a fairness amongst everyone. So in my mind, I always tell people in 1995, we reset and made fair and equal for everyone in the county. That if you owned a quarter, you had a building eligibility. But I'll leave it at that. But with that, we'd have to answer any questions, and then it's your discussion where you want to go with that. Tonight is a work session. Anything that you would come up with as far as ideas, suggestions, we would have to do a public hearing because it would be an ordinance amendment. And that public hearing would be noticed and allow public comment essentially at that time.
Thank you, Toby, for that.
Yep.
That history and how this came about was a big help, so thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Toby, I got one question, or a few, and we talked about it before the meeting, but why does the comprehensive plan say 2 things? Why does it say promote the transfer of eligibilities, but then in other parts, it says to make sure to not go over a density of one house per quarter? To me, that seems somewhat confusing.
Sure. Well, I think, what I believe it really means is that we want to encourage the density of 1 per quarter. And so by transferring them, and I know there's some people that would disagree with this, but you're not increasing them. You're just moving them, essentially. And the idea that we would want clustering of it would be to preserve agricultural, so you don't have, we don't have to farm around a bunch of houses out there.
Yep.
And I agree, it's, but like I pointed out, is that that's in your locational design, is where it says clustering. It's within your policy and goals that it says 1 per quarter.
Got it. Well, and to me, and I can see both sides of that in some areas where the clustering makes some sense versus keeping your farm fields somewhat straight and putting them up there. But, I do think that our process is somewhat backwards. We go sell the eligibility, so the realtor and the landowner sell the eligibility. Then they decide to plat it, and they get it platted. Then it has to be signed off by the township. And by that time, any of the problems that are gonna arise are, we're 3/4 of the way through the thing. And, boy, I would just sure think that we could do that the other way around somehow. And that the township and could have more to do with that. Because as we see with these transfers, and I think that this is gonna continue to be I don't know, an issue, but a discussion for sure. And I think if we could solve the front side of it, as we've seen with these last 3 applications, I mean, those were all done in areas that were zoned properly. Everything was, kind of in place, and they kind of buzzed right through. And I think that in this transferring process, if we could do some more on the front side of it, that would make it a little more streamlined and more understanding, so that everybody understands how that works. I'm not opposed to the transferring necessarily, other than I can see that it creates a lot of problems for your office, especially to try to keep track of them. But sympathetic to the townships and other neighbors, I can see where that creates some problems. If you've got an acreage or farm or whatever you have, and we transfer a bunch of eligibilities and basically build a little rural development right across the road from you, I can see where that's a concern as well. So I guess those are my thoughts. I think that there's a lot of smart people in this county, and there's got to be a way that we can put a little more effort on the front side of this instead of having to be reactionary to it on the backside.
So I think, I look at that in 2 different ways, is that, on the one part of it, the one that we approved last month, that was in Harrisburg Subdivision Authority. I didn't even know where it was going. I mean,
Yeah.
and realistically, when a realtor's doing it, do they know where it's going? Do they know how many acres it is? The one thing that I've always said is that I don't want to show somebody something that's not real. So like a lot of times I always feel uncomfortable with rezones, because rezones, we're not holding them to that. By state law, they're just changing the zoning of their property. So if they come in and say, we're gonna do 29 lots and it's gonna look like this, it might not look like that in the future because of that. And so I would hate to engage the townships and say, well, this is what it's gonna be. And then we all go, yep, well, everything looks good. And then in reality, all of a sudden it becomes 5-10 acres, or it moves here, it moves there. I don't know how to get a hold of that part of it. And I've seen that happen where people are like, they get out there and they're like, well, I want another acre here, I want another 5 here. And then we start looking, well, where do you put the driveway there, and the culverts and stuff. I wish, I've tried to talk to townships about this. They're their own entity. They have their ability to say no. We can say yes to the land use part of it to move it. They can say no, that we don't want this driveway here, we don't want this culvert here. That's their jurisdiction.
No, and I understand
yeah,
that. But my point is why can't we just do that on the front side of it, I guess? And maybe that's more for the landowner and the realtor to deal with. And maybe some townships got to start shutting these down after they're sold. And then maybe they'd seek out their township officials and deal with it, So I guess that's what I'd like to see, if there was some, to me, that just seems like a simple solution to the problem. At least the issues that I know about are generally township related and road related, and townships aren't rich entities, and are not in the business of maintaining roads for basically many municipalities.
Yeah, and you all do it different. I mean,
Yeah.
you all administer differently. So, the only thing that I think of is we did start doing that we're emailing to the township, with each application. But, it's becoming more clear to me that we might have to email it to all of them, if we send it to the clerk, is it getting to everybody, and are they communicating and knowing that they're getting this notice and things
Right.
like that, So, yeah, I'm open, hey,
mean, is there-
I'm open for suggestions. I
Yeah.
mean, we don't, the last thing that, this doesn't help anybody with all these issues that we potentially have that I think, and I've said, I think this can all be resolved.
Right.
These issues, there's solutions to it.
Yeah.
It's just coming up with a consistent thing of how we do that. And honestly, like I tell this to the township officials quite a bit is that, tonight they do have a conflict. I mean, all of them are meeting tonight. But on a typical night, they don't, But how many times do the township officials come and voice their concerns, I mean, we want them to. We want them to be part of this process, so. But, yeah, I mean, and on the flip side of that, if that's something that you would like to see, I mean, we could just look at administratively doing that. Like I'll say, they come in and I'll say, well, we can't process this application yet until you tell me that the township's okay with the draft.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, if we
Yeah.
can just add that to it.
Yeah.
Because that could save, obviously, the applicant a lot of issues if we're all going back and forth on things. I mean, I think we need to have set rules that we need to go by and not waver on one or the other. I think there needs to be rules and we need to go by them. And I think that's a great thing to do if you could do that on the front side, just say, I need to see that the townships are on board with this and where are you going to put your accesses and.
Yeah, I think, all applications, I'd like to slow down,
Yeah.
I mean, they come in, today's the deadline, and we're on for 20 days, 30 days from now. I mean,
Well,
it's just gonna take, your direction on that, because the first thing you're gonna tell me is like, well, we gotta sell it, we gotta close on this, and we gotta do all this stuff and go through it, but, some of that's not our problem on that part of it
Right.
too, so, yeah.
Toby, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Do you have any, can you fill us in a little more on the genesis of how the transferring from parcel to parcel versus from within the parcel came to be, other than somebody just wanted to do it once upon a time in 2009, or?
Yeah, why did that verbiage change?
I can't, on the record, I can't tell why it changed. My guess is they just wanted flexibility. There's probably one that just, I want to go here, well, can't do it, so.
Going back to the township approval, like Toby said, there are developers, like a realtor, he knows, he moves it over here, he's gonna put it over here. There could be definitely a lot of people, I know we're always concentrating on the Sioux Falls on the north end, but there's a lot of county on the south end too. And someone might just want to have their field wide and open and move it over to the other side. They don't know when, where, or whatever. Then how is the township going to improve that if they don't have a clue where they're going to put that home or whatever? I'm just looking at both sides of it also.
Well, we've got some issues like that going on right now where we transfer eligibilities just because. Maybe in the future, we'll want to have all our houses over here, but we don't know that for sure. And I wonder if that's even the smart thing to do, because then we're just making a decision for many, many years. It's an infinite amount of time that they have this now to do. And maybe we shouldn't be transferring housing eligibilities unless we're gonna do something with them. I mean, what's the purpose, I mean, I can see it both ways, but we do have a few issues like that going on right now in the county where, at least down by me, where we're gonna sell this ground, but we're gonna move all the eligibilities over here and blah, blah, blah. And I think that, again, down the road, can create some planning issues. And with the way the verbiage is right now, a big contiguous landowner technically could Well, you could end up with 16 houses right in the corner of one section, right along the road, right?
As long as they're 1 acre.
Yeah.
Well, this is what we're seeing here.
And you could do 32. I mean, there's no end to it. There's nothing in there that says that, well, we're limited to this many acreage sites on. I mean, you can move infinite amount of housing eligibilities onto one parcel.
But this is the issue that we're seeing and we're gonna continue to see.
Yeah.
So you have, I mean, just look at these lots, city lots comparable to this, you know?
Where's this at, Toby?
T, that's T, yeah, it's on the west side of T.
Oh, yeah.
And then you think about that for T now as a municipality, as they start to grow into that, that creates a lot of headaches for them too.
Well, in this, how do you get back here to build houses?
Now,
You know, yeah, it's difficult, yeah. There's no silver bullet. I mean, it's.
No,
you know,
no, right.
But I think it's interesting that you think back to what we started with, you know, that nothing outside of a section.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't think anybody is gonna take anything away from anybody.
No,
You know,
no, I don't
it's
think
just-
that's the
yeah,
case.
Yeah, it's just, how do we wanna transfer these, you know, and there's a lot of people that would comment and say too, is like transferring from one township to another township, equity, you know.
Yeah, I had never thought about that till tonight, you know, I mean, that was I don't know if it's a thing or not, but I guess I've never really thought about that.
Well, I think, you know, and this is anecdotally, but in my, you know, what I've seen is, I think 2 years ago, I think the landowners gave away eligibilities. I mean, if you look at the cost of what they sold the land for, the eligibility, 25,000.
Mhm.
I mean, now it's 100,000. I mean, these are really worth,
Yep.
you know. And if it's not that, I mean, what we're seeing is if you have it and put it up for sale, it's gone. I mean, it's wherever, anywhere. I mean, there's that much demand for rural living that it's big. So it is an asset, you know, and I think that's why, you know, with this equalization thing is, I think that was a lot of that too, is that people were looking at it going, well, you know, if I'm paying this amount of taxes on it, do I have a benefit to it, or do I have an asset to it, so. But
To me, a little different, slight different note. To me, if you own, been in your family for decades, you have section here, section here, section here, it's your land. If you have your housing eligibilities on your land and you want to move them to another spot, to me, I don't have a huge issue as long as we start talking about townships and agreeing and the burden it puts on other people. To me, some of the issues I've seen is what we've encountered again in the last few years. If someone owns a lot here and they bought land here, they want to move it down, well, they'll buy a strip of land, transfer everything down, they get it where they want it, and then sell everything back. To me, that's more of a, not the intent of the original 1995, 2009 rule.
Right.
You know, to me, if it's family ground, family land, and doesn't put a burden on anybody, it's your land, you do what you want. But if you're transferring things through a different means, you know, a temporary means, I think that steps outside, and that's one thing I wouldn't mind seeing addressed.
Yeah.
And I don't know that answer, you have to own a land for 2 or 3 years before you can transfer through it or something, I don't know what that would be.
we got enough
Yeah, I don't know.
regulations like that. No, so this, I pulled this one up, so this one you're familiar with. This was in the history of since 1995, we had the appeal. This was a building eligibility transfer, if you recall. He bought an acre out of this with an eligibility, then moved it over here and they were gonna put the house here. The neighbors, of course, appealed it because they were like, you know, we bought this property, we didn't think there wasn't, you know, we knew there wasn't an eligibility there. And so, but now we transferred one in there. So that's the other thing that we're hearing a lot from the public, is they're like, hey, you know, we bought out here, we counted because we don't want any more people around us, and all of a sudden, there they are, you know, so.
Yeah, and at the time we did that, there's nothing illegal.
Yeah.
Correct.
It was
Yeah.
doing exactly, it was legal.
Yeah, and that was one of the ones that I guess first alarmed me is that was a potential that, and we're gonna start seeing that as kind of a backdoor plan. You you know, to start loading up eligibilities on certain parcels of ground. And that's not gonna stop. The way things are right now, I don't think.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that's good or bad.
No, yeah,
It's-
well.
it's legal,
It's
it's
a
legal right now.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah, but that's a decision we gotta make is,
Yeah.
I think if that's what we wanna continue to move forward with or not, you know. I'm with Jerry, I think I don't think that was the original intent. I struggle with it.
And since we got it for the first time this evening, moving one from one township to another, I mean, that's not addressed, I mean, what,
So it would have been addressed in 95.
right,
Yep,
but now it's,
not.
I mean, do we, sorry. Sorry. I mean, is that something that we should, I mean, working with two townships like that, it's kind of, that definitely needs to, I think, has to have the township's approvals because it's so unique, you know, from one township to another.
So those border townships, and Eric can talk more about this more eloquently than I can, but those border townships, you know, they bought, but they have an agreement. Sometimes it's written, sometimes it's unwritten about who's gonna maintain the road. You know, there's legal ownership of the road, is usually one township, but they have an agreement who's gonna maintain it. So then you come into the question where, okay, is this person approving the driveway permit, or is it this
Right.
one approving the driveway permit? You know, and you know, those are a lot of questions, you know, that you have
Yeah,
to go
that's
through,
why
so.
tonight was just something new and that needs to be.
Yeah, and that's not tonight, but that's just, I mean, this happens every
Right.
day. I mean, they're coming to us and going, you know, and I don't have any record of who maintains it. I'm like, well, I know it's this township. And they're like, no, we have an agreement with them. So you gotta talk to them, you know, so it's like phone tag. And then I call them, well, yeah, but it's their land, so they have to approve it. You know, it's like, you know, there's a lot of stuff that's
Okay.
going on there.
Okay,
You know, it's not like we don't try to
Right.
kumbaya with everybody, but, you know, sometimes it gets, well, it's complicated. It gets complicated, so. But, yeah, I mean, but, you know, if you don't transfer it across the section line, you know,
Yeah, that, I mean, that eliminates it, the way it was.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what I wish we knew what the thought process was when that verbiage was changed.
You know, it could be, Eric, that when that was adopted too, they didn't have the growth that we had right now. They were trying to encourage people to move in, you know, by saying, all right, now you can move over here because it's now parcel.
Sure.
Again, that's just a thought. I wasn't there.
Yep.
No, I wasn't there.
yeah, I second guess every day, but, you know, I mean, so.
Yeah.
But, you know, the other, I guess, the other thought that you'd have too is it's still our continual problem. We have a lot of splits all over. I mean, we're not a, you know, we're not a 160, an 80, a 40. It's carved all over the place, you know? And so that fragmentation, it does make it easier because if you look at this, how do you determine a quarter? There's 3 houses there, you know? So, I mean, it's complicated. It's a parcel to parcel transfer. I understand it. I mean, you know. And plus, I mean, you know, realistically, like Turner County, I mean, they have the same standards, regulations, but they don't have the outward growth that we have.
What does Minnehaha County do? What do they have in place? Do you know?
Same thing.
It's exactly the same?
So if you ask me the dumb answer, I'd say we probably just copied it. You know, realistically, yeah.
Does Minnehaha, on that same note, do they do the rural residential? I know that's not what we're talking about right now, but the rural residential zoning, do they have that? Do you know?
Yeah, yep. But they don't rezone.
But they don't.
They don't approve them anymore.
They don't approve them, no.
I guess, you know, whether it's the eligibility transfers or the rural residential, I mean, when you dig into the comprehensive plan, they had us projected, when they wrote it in 2005, that in 2025, there'd be 40,000 people in Lincoln County, and we're already 30,000 people beyond that.
We grow by 20,000 a decade.
Yeah, so,
But I tend to, I mean, everybody says that to me, it's like, well, that was wrong. I think it's good to look back and see how we grew, right? I mean, the first impression, you look back and say, well, geez, they couldn't predict. Or why don't we look at it and say, well, we blew past even what their predictions were, you know? And, you know, I mean, a lot of that's urban growth, right? I mean, that's within the city growth. But what we're looking at is, you know, our jurisdiction is 360,000 acres of ag land. That's our jurisdiction. The cities, they have plans to grow, to grow out. What our challenge is that, you know, you know, and that's probably part of the comprehensive plan question. Economic development, you know, you know, we permitted, you know, I kidded, my counterpart of Minnehaha County is, we issued 3 more building permits for single-family dwellings than they did, you know, this year. But we also issued 55 commercial permits, and they issued 35 commercial permits. We've got a significant, I mean, our county is out in the rural area, has predominantly more commercial than any county in the state. I mean, you did 3 of them tonight, you know. Those are significant investments in our county, significant economic development projects. So there's a lot to digest. I mean, I don't expect anything to move forward off the needle tonight. It's just a good discussion to have and to move forward with. And again, I would encourage that the law is the law the way it is now. Everything that we talked about tonight is good things to talk about, but it's not what the current law is, you know? So if I process an application tomorrow, it has to meet these things. It doesn't have to meet the section transfer and all that stuff. But, you know, I think that's good. I hope you know, the next part of this phase it would be interesting, because I know there's probably public here tonight. It would be interesting to go to a public hearing with something, just so we could hear public comment on this.
I think that's a marvelous idea. I think that's something we need to plan,
Yep.
because we should have the public involved in it.
Yeah, and I want to hear what they say too, you know, and I wanted to hear, you know, part of it is too, and I think, you know, something that I'm striving to do every day is that part of this is just educational process. This is not easy stuff, you know, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to all this. There's a lot of cogs in the wheel to everything that we do. And I tell staff, you know, when I come down here on the 3rd Monday of every month, this is only about 5% of what we do. I mean, we're doing a whole bunch of stuff up there that's, you know, administrative type stuff, development wise and building wise and all those different types of things. I mean, this is not everything that's going on in the county. There's a lot of stuff that's going on in the county, but yeah, I mean, that would be the next phase, is if we came up with maybe a proposal or an idea that we could then, you know, put forward to a public hearing to at least get some comment. Or, you know, if you guys just want to open up a public, I guess we've never really done that before, but maybe just have an agenda item and just say, you know, public comment on that.
Public comment,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that'd be a great idea.
so, yeah.
Yeah, because as we've discussed tonight, we don't know of any quick answer, or
No.
there isn't any. I mean, this is a big deal. I mean, it's been,
And it's an issue that we continue to get opposition about, right? So I just think it's something that, whether it's opposition in here or it's opposition out in the public that I get or whatnot, it's an issue. And I think that giving our residents an opportunity to talk about it, and we hear what they want to do, and then hope maybe we can move forward with that.
And I think, you know, and you know, this is a good time to say it, but, you know, I always feel kind of, you know, you feel bad because it's like we have an application, they check all the boxes. Then the public comes in and they say, yeah, we just don't really like this kind of a deal. And, you know, and a lot of people that come in here, they've never been to us before. They've never participated in this stuff, you know, and they must walk away thinking, well, they didn't listen to us, you know, they didn't do what we wanted them to do. Well, I mean, but this is really kind of like the speed limit, right? I mean, you know, for all 65 or 85, whatever it is, we want it to be lower or higher, but the law is the law, that part of it, you know. But, you know, at the end of the day, planning is only as good as the community support that you have for it. And that's in general of everything that we do. And so I think if we want to put it on the agenda for next month and just say public comment on building eligibility transfer.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Yeah. So.
And like I want to say, we've mentioned before many times, we're talking about this northern part of Lincoln County, and it's developing. It's a fact. If it's not next week, it's the week after. It's just what's going to happen. You saw a picture of the houses around T. When they put those out there, I remember growing up and ride my bike by them, and now it's just surrounded by other houses. It happens.
It's the south though too.
Yeah,
I mean, we hear we are one county. We are Lincoln County. And it's not just there, happening up there with growth and development. It's the down south. And in my mind, I think that's harder impact on the down south. Because that's, up there, it's developments. I mean, it's going all over, right? I mean, you travel around any road in the county and it's a lot. There's a lot of stuff. Just drive around, I do it periodically, but I did again this weekend. As you start on old Highway 17, you take that down to the Klondike, and you go north, and there's stuff all over the place. It's not just up there; it's all over the place. That's good. That's growth and development, what we get to see every day in our office, people coming in, and they're not people from around here all the time either. They're people moving from all over the place. And they're so excited about this is where they want to be. I mean, in this county, right here, right now, And so we just have to balance all that, and that's really what planning and zoning is.
Yeah, and that's awesome, and I just think we just need to get the process in place to make that easier and more streamlined, and so that everybody's on the same page and we're consistent with our decisions.
Yep. Okay, well, let's put that one to bed, so I'll put that on the agenda for public comment next month, so, okay?
We don't need to make a motion or anything, just add it to
No, we'll just put it, that's
new
consensus.
business next week as
Yep.
public input.
Yeah.
That'd be at the end of the session under new business, correct?
Yep. Yeah. Okay, that's all I got.
All right. Commissioners, any other new business you'd like to discuss? All right, I'll make a motion, just make sure I didn't forget anything. Make a motion to adjourn. Or can we get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn, Scott.
I'll second, Green.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Thank you.